Fishing is fun, but hooking is the only way. We're gonna show you how to catch some fish today.
I'm down here in Delta today, and look who I'm sitting with. I'm sitting with Ken Mah. I met him back when we first opened the store 28 years ago, and we become really good friends. You were a police officer or something, right?
Was.
Yeah, yep. So, you know, he did some favors for me, but but, you know, I've watched this guy grow. He's always been into bass fishing all his life. His father taught him how to fish, just like mine did. Yeah, yep. But then he started getting into tournaments, and he's done quite well. And he's won a lot of major tournaments. You've accomplished a lot.
Yeah, you know, I think back when I walked into the Sacramento store when it first opened, and I met him, and we hit it off right away. And, you know, I think that's been happening for decades. You know, I think people go into that store and, you know, like he's the icon of that store. You know, people go in there to talk to Alan, just like I did. I was 22 when I met him, and, you know, and I don't know, I don't want to tell you how old he is, but he got me by a little bit.
Yeah, a little.
Yeah, and, you know, you back then, you know, before social media, before all that, that's how we got information.
I watched this guy, you know, I offered this guy a lot of help a long time ago, and I don't know if he was just too embarrassed or I don't know what his problem was, but, you know, I mean, he's a stick. There's no doubt he's a stick, but everybody has help. I don't care who you are. Dobbins, Bobby Barrick, all those guys, everybody has a niche, a network of people.
Yeah.
You know that, right?
Yeah.
You know, and it still happens to this day. Nobody does it by themselves.
So Ken, my first introduction to you was Alan and I were fishing somewhere out on the Delta, and you stopped by to say hey, and you had a tournament the next day, and Alan looked at me and said, "You know who that is? That's Ken Mah." I said, "Oh, okay."
Like, whatever.
Okay, like, you know, everybody knows Alan, so he
But listen to what I told her.
Yeah, and he said, "You know what? That guy is going to win the tournament tomorrow." I said, "Well, how do you know that? I mean, there's so many boats and participants." He said, "Because the person who's win is going to win on a punch bite."
Because we were knocking them, punching.
Yeah, and he said, "Ken Mah is the best puncher out here."
I said it was right. I told her, I said, it's right up his alley.
Yeah.
We're punching fish. Even when you came up, I said, hey, we're punching them. And I already told her, I said, he's going to win.
Yeah, so that day, the next day you went out and you won the Wild West.
Yeah.
And
yeah, no, that happened. I remember that interaction. And yeah, I mean, it was. I won that tournament on a punching rod.
And the shocking things, so Alan texted me, he said, "Yeah, you know that dude we met, that Ken Mah? He won." And then he texted me the next day, "You know that dude Ken Mah? He won another tournament, 2 boats in 2 days." The first time he ever heard of that happening. But it wasn't in the Delta, it was in Lake Berryessa.
Yeah.
And so that just shows what.
But he caught him on a bait that he was using down in Delta.
I did. I basically Delta fished the Berry. You know, I'm no Berryessa expert by any means, and you know, the water worked out, and you know, I went up there and threw a vibrating jig, and yeah, I won those tournaments back to back. I mean, just kind of crazy.
So 2 boats in 2 days.
Yep.
Not many people can say that in this world.
Nope.
Not many.
Not very many.
Yeah.
So Ken, with all this crazy weather we've had lately, and you know, there's been such a huge flush of water in the system, so things are really changed for this spring. So can I ask you, what are your top lures for this spring, and what depths we'll be fishing, and what kind of colors you're going to be going for?
You know, like I was telling them, you know, we're down here in the Delta. Conditions are very bad. I mean, the yellow bypass went under, and it just muddies everything. The Sacramento River, everything is just like mud. Some places, we're out here today, you can't even see 1 inch down. It's so muddy. But the water temperature is 58 degrees, we found. And the days are getting longer. The fish know that it's getting time to spawn. So you need to go look for them spawning areas.
And what kind of lures would you start with?
This guy here, you know, it's like, I tell him, hey, use a Cinco. You know, first time I fished the Elmo Cinco tournament with this guy, he got a big old sinker on top of his Yamamoto Cinco. I was laughing like hell at him. I go, what are you going to do with that?
I can't wait for it to fall.
He's a power fisherman.
He drives like he uses his Senko, huh?
Yeah. I mean, he's just a different type of fisherman. He's more your power fisherman. And I think the results doing that way, you're going to catch bigger fish. But you can catch big ones on Senkos, and it's proven over the years.
I honestly feel that on any lake, the biggest big ones are used to chasing down prey. So, you know, in most of the tournaments that are won, majority of tournaments won, even across the country, are won on a moving bait, some type of moving bait.
Yep.
Yeah, so for me, you know, coming off the MLF, ended up second in that last week. And I agree with Alan. You know, the water conditions on the Delta are still very poor. We got a break in the rain and all that other stuff. The water temps are going, so the fish want to go. We saw them push some in that MLF event, and you know, for me this time of year, I mean, really, it's really three baits that I start with, and the first one is a 1/2 ounce Bill Lewis rattle trap. I've been throwing that for decades. And I just matched the watercolor. Second one is some type of vibrating jig.
Yeah, but you're covering a lot of water.
I'm covering a lot of water.
Where a Senko, you throw out, you're sitting in the same spot for quite a while. And I know that ain't your style. I know.
Yeah. And then the third thing that I like to do this time of year is I do like to just do regular flipping with a black and blue jig. And then punching is always, you know, always got to have a punching rod pretty much from like mid-February all the way to mid-November.
And are you going to find new spots because you think the depths have changed, or are you going to look for something different now that the water's actually changed?
No, I think that what has to happen is once the water clarity kind of flushes out to the bay and the grass can filter the mud, and then like Alan's been telling me all day, you know, once that water leaves the Sac River and goes over the weir into the Yolo bypass, that really just muddies almost the entire Delta up. So once that actually stops or gets below the weir, and we can get out here and the tides can actually come in and out 4 times a day, it'll filter that water. It'll get to the color it needs. The fish are going to go regardless.
Yes, they will.
It's just hard for us to catch them in that mud.
Yep.
But the fish are going to go up there. The fish are going to spawn. And if the water stays dirty, what's going to happen, and Mother Nature does this stuff, what's going to happen is the fish are going to have an epic spawn because the anglers can't catch them. The predators can't find them, right? And their fry will have a high survival rate because when the water's dark, the bluegills have a hard time seeing them and preying on them.
Do you think it'll be a short spawn or a long spawn?
I think it's going to be a delayed spawn.
They come up in waves.
Yeah.
You know, they don't all do it at the same time. You're going to get waves of fish come up. You know, they'll go for a couple months.
Yeah, they'll spawn on the Delta. I've seen them spawn until late June. You know, so this year they're definitely late. Prior to the MLF, no fish, no big ones had moved up.
No.
And we knew that because of the tournament results. You know, there were 3-pounders, 4-pounders being big fish. And then last week in the MLF, there was a 8-14 weighed in, a 10-10, marked the same weight at 10-10. And then there were multiple 6- and 7-pounders weighed in last week. So that's that first wave that moved up.
Yeah.
But some of the most exciting time on the Delta is coming up.
Oh, yeah, for sure. No doubt about it. You know, back in the days, we haven't had a flush like this since 17. You know, and it's needed. And people just have to relax because when it happens, anybody's going to catch them.
Oh, yeah. I really think that the spring is setting up. I know it's delayed and people are rushed. They want to get out here. You know, let the water flush a little bit because the conditions are still pretty tough. But I would say as long as the water clears, you know, in that next 2 weeks, I'd say in the next 2 weeks, you know, the Western Bass Shootout's coming up. You know, I think we're going to see some really, really big bags in that in 4 weeks.
And when you are in a tournament, you're in a high pressure situation because you have very, very strict time constraints. And when you take out a new lure, how long do you toss it and how long will you stay with it before you change? Oh gosh,
great question. It's really no different than what he does. It's feel.
Yeah.
You know, I told MLF last week, and I told Alan, you know, like I tied on 3 different colored rattle traps. and 7 different vibrating jigs during the tournament to try to figure out what was it that they wanted. You know, and I started with shad, and then I went to crawl patterns, and then green pumpkin patterns, you know, and then bluegill patterns, and then I would throw variations of that. So there's never, for the viewers, there's never a set deal, you know. I think the most important thing, the most important formula for people that are starting is you always want to match bait color to watercolor.
Yep.
You know, so what I mean by that,
you could do that all year round.
Yeah.
You know, I always said the darker the water, the darker the colors.
Yep. That's it.
Rule of thumb.
Yep. And then the lighter, you know, the brighter the sky is, usually the brighter the colors.
But I mean, even to this day, like right now, every time I go out, I seem to learn something. And I'm sure you do too.
Yeah.
You could go out there and, like you mentioned to me, that you put this goofy ass color I gave you that looked like you would hang on Christmas tree.
That's good.
And what happened?
They ate it.
Yeah, they ate it.
The fish ate it.
Yeah.
You know,
see, so it's just changing up. You got to change up.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. I'm guilty of it, even with all the success, and I think this is a really good nugget for the viewers. We get in ruts.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you always go to your favorite bait.
Yeah, you get in ruts. You know, you throw, whether you throw a Senko and you throw green pumpkin, you throw a brush hog, you throw a June bug.
Yeah.
You know, like me, I throw a yo mama, and it's confusion.
Yeah.
You know, but you get in ruts, and sometimes you have to be willing to change to get out of that rut. Because like Alan said, I mean, you know, I was throwing a much brighter colored trailer on my vibrating jig than I would ever have thrown. And the fish wanted it. You know, that was one of the key things that happened last week.
You had mentioned something earlier today when we were talking. We were talking about your co-angler, and I was asking you, does a co-angler throw the same thing as you? Will they have the same success rate? And you had explained to me how it works with a co-angler for both of you to be productive. What type of lure would, if for example you're throwing a chatterbait and say bright red, would your co-angler also want to throw a chatterbait when he sees you catching in that color?
Okay, so, and I'm gonna go off of, I've been fishing tournaments for like over 20 years. Most of the successful co-anglers, or people that are fishing in the back of the boat, they have to do something complementary to what the person in the front of the boat's doing. And what I mean by complementary is you know, if Alan's flipping a 1 ounce brush hog, you know, you should be back there, or whoever's fishing the back of his boat, and maybe flip a smaller jig, or maybe flip a Senko, or throw a square bill. It's complementary.
Why not the same?
Because typically, when you know, and it's going to sound a little arrogant, but you know, when he's up there and he's dialed in, or when I'm up there and I'm dialed in and I'm throwing a bait, it's going to be really difficult for that person to throw the same exact bait, because I'm going to hit all the angles before the person in the back of the boat even, you know, gets up to.
Well, I leave a little room for him.
Yeah, I don't leave no room for him.
Oh, that's a funny one.
What are you talking about? Jeez.
My day 3 co-angler, Casey. You know, I was throwing a bright vibrating jig in a trap, and he pulled out a square bill. He caught his biggest fish, and he only threw it for like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, he just pulled it out, said, oh, okay, he's catching them, you know, on that. I'm going to pull out a square bill. He pulls the square bill out, and I'm not kidding. He throws it for about 20 minutes, catches a 471, which is his biggest fish, ends up winning a boat. Right? Ends up winning a boat.
Yeah.
You know, and then he catches 2 or 3 small ones on it, and he put it down, never threw it the rest of the day.
I've done a couple.
Talk, Alan.
What?
Fishing is fun, but hooking is the only way. We're gonna show you how to catch some fish today.